Now, if you don't know about Kelley, uh, let me just first say something about Kelley. Kelley Business School is one of the oldest business school in the U.S. The business school alone is over 100 years old, over 100 years of excellence, and currently it has 105,000 living alumni throughout the world. And in Korea, of all the international schools, international university in the world, uh, the Indiana University Alumni Association is actually the largest of any uh, non-Korean university in Korea. So once you graduated, you actually graduated into the Indiana University Alumni Network. So you have a very large network of Indiana University Alumni Association right in your backyard. Okay. The way we approach this program, right, is really we're trying to bring in the best of the two schools. So Indiana is really comparable to SKK GSB in the sense that they are also one of the best business schools you can find anywhere in the world. The full-time MBA program is currently ranked number 16 in the US. Their evening MBA program is ranked number 1 or number 9, depending on which ranking you're looking at. And their undergraduate program is among the top 10 in the US. So it is a business school where all the program from top to bottom is highly regarded. Now, the way this program works is, first of all, it's a dual degree program. So at the end of this process, you'll be receiving 2 diplomas, one from SKK GSB, one from the Kelley School. In terms of teaching, 45% of the instruction of your credits will be coming from SKK GSB. Kelley School actually has the heavier portion of 55%. Okay, and instead of you watching videos online of Kelley in US, what happen is the Kelley faculty will be coming in every weekend to work with you. Okay, so it's not a distance education thing. They're actually physically flying out to Korea to work with you in classroom in Korea. Okay, 45 credits total for graduation, and graduation requirement is 3.25 out of 4.5. Okay, so we think it's actually a reasonable goal to achieve 3.25 requirement. Okay, so the start of the program, unlike most Korean school, which typically starts in March 1st, the program actually starts on August 10th. Okay, so that will be the commencement of the program, and I'll get into what activities will happen on that day. Okay, but it's a 1.5-year program, so we start in August, and after the first year, we end in July. You have a summer break. Then in August again, we'll pick back up in the program, and you'll complete the program by the 2nd January for a 1.5 year. Classes happens on the weekend. So every Friday evening, you have classes from 6 to 9 p.m. and you go home, rest. The next day you come back and we'll start bright and early at 9 a.m. and finish at 6 p.m. Okay, and each class or each topic will typically last 2 weekends. Okay, so 2 weekends, then we'll change topic for another 2 weekends, and we'll change topic and we'll cycle through. Okay, so let's talk about exactly what are the themes in this program, and most importantly, what you will be learning throughout this process. Okay. Now, the way we designed this program, and when we the Indiana, Kelley School and GSB, when we got together, we're thinking about, well, when we want to create something for the executive, okay, who is the target we have in mind? So what we have in mind is somebody who is about to enter the rank of a corporate executive, okay, or somebody who recently been promoted into the executive ranks, a VP, okay. So we're asking ourselves, well, what are the essential knowledge, right, essential tool set that a recently promoted executive really need to have under his or her belt in terms of thinking about how to lead an organization, how to manage a business division. So when we're thinking about this, one thing we realized pretty quick is an executive is actually not what we call a functional specialist. Okay. What an executive really need to do is, an executive need to have a good understanding of the company's 360. That means an executive really needs to understand a little bit of everything. So executive needs to be able to understand the financials, read financial statements, understand how to finance the company, right? Understand the marketing and how to promote new products, understand how to lead and manage people, understand the production process, right? And operation process of the company, have the vision to think about what will the future entail for the company, where the company is going, right? So all these are actually very different skill set, right? So instead of trying to become a functional specialist, let's say, go very deep in one particular subject. Let's say I want to be a financial specialist, so I study a whole year and a half of finance and finance only, right? We think that actually is not what a well-rounded executive need to really lead the organization. Because if you do that, you just become a functional specialist. An executive needs to be well-rounded. So we kind of had that in mind when we developed this curriculum of how do we deliver the 360 that a company's leader would need, okay? So we kind of developed the topics into 4 different buckets, okay? And the 4 different buckets are not really in sequential order, but they cover the 4 things that we think are important in training the modern day executive. So first one is what we call the foundations of management. Okay, these are really the basic nuts and bolts, the tackling and blocking that every executive need to have, and where we kind of start to build up as a foundation for other areas. So there's a couple different kind of themes in that foundation management. So a couple of things you'll be exposed to will be how to read a financial statement, right? How to understand what's going on in the company by reading the financial statements, okay? For some of you without accounting background, this is actually really important to understand the financial talks of the company, because the language of a corporate boardroom is ultimately a language of finance. So you gotta be able to pick up financial statement, look into it, understand what's going on about the health of an organization. Part of the foundation management is effective communication, right? So as an executive, how do you stand up in front of a crowd of 500 reporters and be able to deliver an unpacking, right? An unpacking event. How do you give a motivation speech in front of your employees, right? How do you talk to a board meeting? So these are the things that we kind of emphasize in foundation management. Let's see, leading organizations, okay, that's the other buckets. In leading organizations, the different courses are really about how to manage within the company's 4 walls, okay? So things such as leadership, motivation, right? Corporate finance, right? Things are dealing with how things are paid for within the organization. The topic kind of go in and out. We change some topic that we think are important will stay, of course, but about every 2 or 3 years, we will do a revamp of the different courses and add a few things that we think are more recent, more relevant, and take out a few things that we think is a little bit dated, and it's time to move on. So within leading organization, one of the things that we're adding this year is how to manage a smart supply chain, right? Especially right now, this is actually very critical because we're going through a coronavirus situation and supply chain is being very disrupted. With the emergence of Industry 4.0, we have to think about, well, how does all these situation impact the way we manage our supply chain process? Another thing that we added, actually starting this year, is a course on crisis management. And this really came about when we are seeing what's going on with a lot of Korean companies. Of course, when you work in the company, one of the things that you don't want to see is something bad happen, a crisis happen. Okay, so for example, several years ago, Samsung went through the Note 7. Then McDonald's in Korea went through a young girl dying after eating their hamburger. So all these are disastrous events, things that are not planned for. But ultimately, unfortunately, things happen. And when it happens, companies typically are called flat-footed. They don't know how to respond, and they don't know how to work on their corporate messaging, right? So we decide to, these things happen regularly enough. God forbid that you should run into them. But if it does happen to your company, a well-rounded executive needs to be prepared and be ready to deliver a response. So we decided to put together a course on crisis management, right? How do companies think through a crisis situation? How do they communicate with the public during the crisis? And how do they deliver the message during the crisis that minimize the impact of the crisis on the company? So these are what we call leading organizations. Things are related to managing within the walls of the company. Okay. Leading markets, on the other hand, is the outward facing part. Okay. So these are how to manage the market situation, anything outside of the company, such as marketing. Okay. How to manage your brand. Things such as capital markets, right? Outward facing. Capital markets will be about how does a company raise working capital, right? Whether through bond, through stock issuance, how do you make that decision? Okay. Leading market was also dealing with external laws and regulations, right? So we have a course that basically strictly talks about how to navigate the legal environment within the WTO context and framework. Okay. So all of these are leading markets are really the outward facing part of what an executive does on a kind of regular basis. Now, the last element in this program is really about leading technology transformation, or what I would like to call the next big things. Okay, so this is more of a forward-looking for the company. So, every company, one of the biggest issues they have to deal with is, how do I come up with the future product or future innovation? So we have a course on how the executive think about coming up with new ideas and take the ideation process all the way through a prototype development and eventually a launch. So how do you manage that innovation process? Okay. Another course that we have is digital transformation, right? With the advent of Industry 4.0, new data technology, companies are changing how they operate. So what are the impact for your company and how do you manage through the change process? Another course we have in there, this is actually a new one we just started last year. It's called Cybersecurity. And this really came about because we're seeing a lot of Korean companies really try to struggle on dealing with how do I actually protect my data integrity, right? I have a lot of data on customers. I have a lot of data going left and right with my organization. How do I structure security features around my data? What are my legal requirements? And how do I protect myself legally? So we have a new course that we started this year, and it's actually doing pretty well on cybersecurity, dealing specifically with those data issues. So these kind of 4 things are what we think every executive needs to be aware of and needs to be able to be conversant in. Okay. Now, we talk about courses. Now, besides sitting in classroom every weekend and taking classes, as a global program, we had to get you guys out there into different parts of the world to see what's going on, right? I know you probably travel a lot, but we're gonna make you travel even more, okay? Within the program, we have embedded an immersion week, okay? Immersion week is typically a 1-week affair, where as a class, as a cohort, we travel to a location and we conduct a 1-week program in that location. Each immersion has a very particular theme. So a very particular theme that we are trying to learn from. The first immersion happens in August 10th. So this is the first week of the program will actually happen during the immersion. Always in Bloomington, Indiana, home of Kelley School, Indiana University. And we think this is important for you to see your other campus because you belong to it, you should really see what it looks like. And it is absolutely a gorgeous campus. The theme of that week is leadership. So for the entire week of Immersion 1, you'll be working on developing leadership skill and capability at Indiana University Kelley campus, okay? The second immersion typically happens sometime mid through late April. Okay. Not this year because due to the coronavirus, we actually push it back into September, but typically it will be mid through late April. Immersion 2 always happen in Washington, D.C. And the theme of Immersion 2 is government policy and industry collaboration. So what we're trying to do in this immersion is try to get our students kind of firsthand knowledge about how business actually cooperates with government agency and develop policy relating to business and trade. Okay. Reason we're doing it in DC because U.S. is one of the major trading partner for most companies in Korea actually. And one of the things that is really critical to know is how does U.S. policy impact Korea-U.S. trade relation? So during that week, you'll be talking to and meeting with a lot of people in the Washington, D.C. that actually works on the government issues relating to trade in Korea. A few people that usually come to talk to our group, one of them is Mark Lippert. If you don't know him, once you see him, you'll know exactly who he is. Mark Lippert was the U.S. ambassador to Korea, I think about 3 or 4 years ago. He's the one that had 2 little babies while he was in Korea. Somebody else that also come regularly is Wendy Cutler. Wendy Cutler is the U.S. chief negotiator for U.S.-Korea FTA, and she's also the lead negotiator for U.S. TPP trade agreement. She usually comes in and she'll spend some time with our group going through, how does trade negotiation work between U.S. and Korea, and how do Korean companies get themselves on the table in that negotiation? And she usually have the same, right? You'd rather be on the table discussing than at the table being discussed. So one of the things that she shared with you is all the backstory of how she negotiated with her Korean counterpart, how companies in Korea try to get their issues in the middle of that discussion. And she'll talk about what works and what tend to not work in that regard. And you also meet a couple of Congress people that are actually heavily involved in the U.S.-Korean relationship as well. Okay, so that one, second one is always DC on government policy. The last one is actually the fun one. The last one always happened in the last January. So this is the last week of the entire program. And it's also a fun one because by now you're pretty much done with the program. So it's a celebration, but also a learning opportunity. Now, the theme on the last immersion is flexible, okay? This is really opportunistic. The general theme is about global trade emerging opportunities, but we tend to change the focus and location depending on what topic people are really interested in. So we've done sustainability in Thailand before. We've done financial crisis in Greece and Cyprus. And that was really a fun one because during the financial crisis in Cyprus, we had the Minister of Finance come meet with the group and discuss how Cyprus declared bankruptcy, right? How they took all the investors and basically just say, you have no more money, everything is gone. And how did they actually rebuild economy and company to rebuild back in the credit ratings throughout the crisis. So that's actually really something fun to learn. We've done Spain in Madrid, talking about the European trade agreements and how that is coming apart. Last year, or actually earlier this year, we went to Germany, Berlin specifically, to look at, how does the leader or the economic leader of EU handle the EU crisis, okay? And particularly, how does Germany lead the world in Industry 4.0? in smart manufacturing. How did they do it? And a lot of companies in Korea is really into Industry 4.0, how to go about it. And you're not going to do any better than going to Germany and see and talk to some of the people who are actually engaging in Industry 4.0. So usually it's always 1 week, most likely to be in Europe. And we're going to probably continue this. Which theme that comes up for your class, that depends. But usually, trust me, it's something fun and something really to look forward to. Okay, networking opportunities. Remember, you are belonging to 2 different schools, okay? So you actually belong to 2 different alumni, and you are certainly member of 2 different alumni activities as well. So IU alumni has a big alumni in Korea. They do golf competition, they do Olympic torch relay. When it was in Pyeongchang a few years ago, our students were all involved in that. GSB event, there's a couple events that we hold every year, homecoming, GSB night, alumni forum, golf competition. Again, you are belong to both alumni, you are invited to everything. So double the fun, double the networking. Okay, something that we're also very proud of, okay? Graduate satisfaction is high. And this is really thanks to the professionalism and the hard-working dedication of our staff, like Ms. Hwa-Young Cho. Our students are very happy. And they like to recommend us to their coworkers and to other people. We're happy with that.